Hello everybody, welcome back to the great state of Montana. This is the Carbine Cowboy today coming to you. You know, I got to thinking after the previous video I did on accuracy problems with rifles, I got to thinking about some things that you can do to your handguns too. This isn't going to so much do with accuracy, but with maintenance. Handguns spend a lot of time riding in holsters, underneath the seat of a vehicle, sometimes in a woman's purse if she carries in a purse or a fanny pack or whatever the case may be. And they have a tendency to collect a lot of debris, dust, dirt, lint, you name it. So what I was thinking of doing today was talk a little bit about how much cleaning should be done to a firearm. I had a gentleman tell me one time that the two worst things you can do to a gun is over clean one and under clean one. There's a lot of truth in that. Every time a vehicle or a firearm is used, it should be cleaned. Now, there's a difference between over cleaning and under cleaning. If you're out with your particular handgun, we'll take this CZ75 P07 for instance. It's got a steel slide polymer frame. Not much there really, right? But if you take this thing out and you shoot it, one thing you should do is make sure that you clean the barrel, lightly lubricate, and I do use the word lightly, and put the weapon back. If you're using a all steel pistol like this 1911, same principle applies. You clean it, wipe it down with a light oily rag to remove all fingerprints, dust, debris, put it back. Where a lot of people get into trouble is this is not a vehicle, okay? You don't have to saturate it in oil and grease, because the problem you have is when these things ride in a holster or in a glove box or underneath the seat of a vehicle, a woman's purse, a backpack, whatever the case may be, the more grease and lubricant you have on these firearms, the more debris they will attract. And they will attract enough debris that it can keep them from functioning like they're supposed to. People don't really stop and think about that too much. Your military and your police, yes, they do keep their weapons clean, but they will also be the first to tell you that you saturate these things in oil and grease, and over the course of a day, a couple of days, a week, they get gritty, and it's just from all the debris they attract. So what I wanted to do was just hit on a couple of light things. For some of you, this may be old hat. For some of you new guys, well, maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you can tell me something. But the one thing I wanted to touch on is lubrication. Just make sure that when you're done cleaning your gun and you pick it up, it's not like a greasy piece of pizza where all the oil and grease is running down the gun, okay? A light coat of oil is all that's really needed. If you want to use grease on the rails of an autoloader, that's fine. I have a nasty tendency of using white lithium grease with a Q-tip, and I put a little bit on the slides of the gun, and I prefer using that over oil because the problem you have is if a gun's riding in a holster all the time, all the oil's going to run off the gun. The grease will at least stay in the rails. Then, periodically, just wipe it down with an oily rag. Don't dunk it, but just wipe it down with a light oily rag, and that'll take care of any rust issues you may or may not have. Plus, it also keeps all the dust and lint. I don't know if you can really tell it or not, but this pistol belongs to Sasquatch, and he was just out fishing here over the weekend, and just from riding in the holster on his belt, inside the sight, there's a little bit of dust. You look along the frame rail, you can see a little bit of dust, and that's all it's from, is just from riding in the holster. If you have a jacket or a coat on over top of that, the lint from the material will also collect in a lot of these places. So it's a pretty good idea to keep them clean, keep them up, That way, if you ever need to use one, they don't look like you had them laying out in the back 40 somewhere in a barn, you know. But these are just some little things that I thought I'd go over with. And I'm not saying that you have to use a high-grade oil or grease on them. For years, all I ever used to use was Singer 3-in-1 sewing machine oil to wipe down the outside of a firearm. I would try to have a tendency to stay away from WD-40. I've never particularly cared for it. There may be some of you that do. If so, that's fine. But I have a tendency anymore to use what I call a dry lubricant. And some of that stuff's made by DuPont. It's called Super Slick, and it really is slick. But when you put it on, it's a dry film. And the reason why I kind of prefer that is because you don't have to worry about it running off the gun. I knew a gentleman once, he was an avid duck and goose hunter. And I do mean avid. He had bought himself a brand new Bernelli pump shotgun. And every time he'd come back in from the field, he would oil that thing, and I do mean oil that thing, to the point to where when you'd grab a hold of the gun and turn it upside down, water would run off of it like water. He found out in short order that didn't work too well, because out in the sand pits of the goose blind and out in the mud and the grime, it really had a tendency to collect a lot of grit, and it collected the grit to the point to where it started to prematurely wear out some of the parts of the gun. And his thought process was as well, if I keep the gun really oiled, I don't have to worry about rust problems. Well, he was right about that. But what he didn't realize was it was collecting a lot of debris, and it was actually gumming up the internal works of the gun. And I finally talked him into letting me clean that thing for him one day. And, well, let's just say that all that oil turned into like a sludge, and it collected all that junk. And it was actually caked on that gun to the point to where I had to use a brush to get some of it off there. So those are some things that you might want to keep in mind, and especially with a handgun. You don't have to keep them surgically clean, and you do not have to disassemble the weapon every time you shoot it. This 1911, after I put about 4,000 rounds to it, I will take the whole gun apart and clean it. One of the worst things you can do with firearms is totally disassemble one every time you shoot it. I had a gunsmith tell me with some of the metal that they're using today, when you start driving out the little pins, you start taking everything apart, you're going to prematurely wear out all those parts because they were not designed to be taken apart on a daily basis. And there's really no need for it. I mean, if you're not putting thousands of rounds at a time through that gun, there's really no need to totally disassemble them. On most of my handguns, I might disassemble them once a year, take them apart, give them a good cleaning, unless they get saturated or they end up in the mud or something completely out of the norm. But I just thought I would bring that to you, give you something to think about. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, what you've maybe thought of and seen or heard. I like the conversation. So with that, from a cold and starting to snow Montana afternoon, this is the Carbine Cowboy saying, see you next time.